This is an old Chinese proverb that I just came across again. I've heard it several times, but I think it's a fun way to frame this just today in a lot of ways. So a humble farmer and his son had a beautiful stallion who helped farm their fields. But one day the horse ran away. And so, trying to be very consoling, the neighbor said, "Oh man, your horse ran away. What terrible luck." To which the farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not. We'll see." A few days later, the horse returned, leading a few wild mares back to the farm. Neighbor shouted out, "Your horse has returned and brought more horses with him. What great luck." The farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not. We'll see." Later that week, the farmer's son was riding one of the new horses and was thrown to the ground, leaving him with a bruised body and a broken leg. Farmer's friend came to visit, and the same message. "I'm so sorry, your son broke his leg. What terrible luck." The farmer replied, "Maybe so, maybe not. We'll see." A few weeks later, the army marched through town, recruiting all the able-bodied boys for the army. They did not take the farmer's son because he was still recovering from his injury. To which the farmer's neighbor shouted with joy, "Your boy is spared. You're so lucky." To which the farmer replied, say it with me, "Maybe so, maybe not. We'll see." And it's just the idea of how often we want to connect the dots before we're ready to connect the dots in the way life unfolds, it seems, right?
Yeah.
And how easy that seems to be for marriage to have happen.
Maybe so, maybe not.
Maybe so.
We'll see.
Maybe not. And it's so commonplace that I think we all want to just have things happen on our time frame. And why won't they get on board with this? And why is this still a problem? And when will this happen? And maybe so, maybe not.
You're speaking directly to me this morning, aren't
I'm
you?
speaking to me too here, baby, because this is what life has been and for always will be in a lot of ways, because we set things in motion. What's the phrase old college roommate used to say? God made time, man made watches.
Right.
And we often want to know the time.
Right.
Things, not just what time is it. Well, this is Sexy Marriage Radio. We started a little different this way, it seems, but what we're trying to do is constantly frame conversations and how we can look at things. So, maybe not.
We'll see.
We'll see. But just to get us started today, a couple of things by way of housekeeping of announcements that are coming up. So save the date, Pam.
I'm saving
June 19th to the 21st, 2025, the 2025 Sexy Marriage Radio Getaway in downtown Fort Worth.
Yes.
So hotel right in the middle of Sundance Square, downtown Fort Worth. Once you get to the hotel, you will not need a vehicle.
No, not unless you want to drive to Dallas for something.
Or, yeah, you might want to see some other things.
There's lots to do in downtown Fort Worth, and we'll have some more to come on that.
Absolutely.
We'll have some.
But save the date.
Yeah.
New city, 20 miles south of where we've typically been.
It's still a whole different feel.
But downtown Fort Worth is a fun place. So June 19th to the 21st. And this year when we start registration, which will happen in a couple of weeks, most likely, we're going to set up a super early bird rate that you're going to want to take advantage of if you're coming this year. So the cheapest chance you get to get it.
Stay tuned.
Yep. June 19th to the 21st. And then also August 18th here in McKinney.
Mm-hmm.
I get the chance to teach a class, marriage by Divine Design, at our church on Sunday nights. So if you live local in the Dallas area and you want to come up to McKinney on Sunday night, starting at 6 p.m. each Sunday, come join us. It's going to be fun at Christ Fellowship. If you want more details, feedback at sexymarriageradio.com. We'd love to see you. Mm-hmm. If you live nearby and you want to just come hang out, love to have you come. Well, coming up today on the regular version, we're going to dive into some little how-tos here, babe, on how to talk with your spouse about sex. We're going to go through some of the do's and don'ts, because it still is interesting to me, although it's not at all fascinating anymore, but it's interesting to me how we have real trouble talking about this subject with the person with which we participate in this subject a lot of times.
Yeah.
Because it gets convoluted, it gets complicated, it gets fraught with all kinds of emotion. So we're going to give you some of the do's and some of the don'ts on how to approach this subject. Mm-hmm. And then on the extended content today, which is deeper, longer, and there are no ads, you can subscribe at smr.fm/academy. I need the Academy to help me flesh out some thoughts here, and you, because you're going to be first hearing these as well. But I want to talk through the idea of have sex versus being sexual.
Sure.
Is there a difference? What does that look like?
Okay.
How does that play out? And so I'm going to kind of go through my thoughts, and Pam's going to help me massage them. And then this is where the nation and the academy comes into play.
Well, that seems like a very obvious answer to me, but
Oh,
okay.
well, then maybe it's
we'll
going to be a
chat through
very
it.
short segment. So all that's coming up right after this. All right. So when we think of this idea of just approaching our sex lives, one of the things we've done with our show throughout all the years has been we want to frame conversations, and we want to help people approach a dynamic that plays out, because a lot of times I think we can, I'll speak for me. I used to think that sex would just happen naturally.
Oh, I did too.
Right. There would be no real forethought. It would just be this thing that just easily occurs.
Yeah. When we were dating, I thought that was exactly how it would happen.
Right. And so I think a lot of couples are probably the same, because it's filled with all kinds of energy and emotion when you're dating. And so it is relatively easy, it would seem. Have sex and be sexual. Hey, there you go. A little tease for what's coming.
See, and you just framed them as two different things, but okay. Well,
because I think they are two different things. But again,
all right.
So a lot of times I think the struggle of talking about this subject with our spouse is so troublesome, is because most of our entry into it, of actually talking about it, not thinking this through while I'm thinking about it. Right?
This is wonderful.
Yeah, it's great radio.
Great
here.
radio.
But the idea of bringing it up and talking about the subject oftentimes seems to happen first or initially when there's a problem.
And in the heat of it.
An experience happened and it didn't go well, or something didn't work right, or they weren't in the mood, and so now all of a sudden I got all this emotion layered on, and it makes it a really contentious conversation right off the bat, because both people are defensive or hurt or frustrated. And let's face it, this probably isn't shocking news to anybody, but our emotions will cloud out our rationality.
Yes.
A lot of time.
Yes.
So when we're talking about this idea of how do we talk about this subject, here's some do's and don'ts. Okay. So we're just going to run through, we'll unpack some.
Perfect.
But there's several. Right. And so we might spend a little more time on some.
So some we're not going to unpack. Okay.
Yeah. Well, some a little bit are a little more obvious, and some we might need to unpack a little bit. So I'll look to you to help explain this if we want to go deeper on something.
Okay.
But the first one that comes to mind, and this is in no particular order, these are just some things I've come across. So name your intention. What am I really after? What am I really going after in this communication?
Well, you would think that would be obvious and self-explanatory, but I think I don't think it is. I think that's very easy to make assumptions about what my spouse is after if they bring something up.
Right.
And it may not at all be their intention.
Right.
I think that's a really good key to bring out.
And this is where it gets pretty deep and sophisticated, because sometimes my actual intention, if I'm honest, is I just want you to be more on board, when I don't have control over that conversation.
Well, if I bring that up, at least that's out in the open as to what I'm wanting.
It's not covert anymore.
Yeah. If you say that to me, well, at least then I can speak up for myself and say, you know what? You don't have any control over that.
Yep.
And maybe I don't know what I want either. So realize how little control, if any, you have over any of that.
Correct.
And speak up. And the spouse needs to speak up for themselves too, right?
Yeah. And so I think just the mere mental exercise and process of what is my intention? What am I really after? Helps set the stage initially. Because if I'm, most of the time, like we said at the beginning of this segment, if I do this and it's from a reactive stance, it's usually more attacking. It's usually more after something that I don't have influence on as much as I think I do. Versus how do I do the heavy lifting before bringing the conversation, to see it as, you know what, I think that this is possible. I've seen glimpses of this. I want to see how we could capture this better.
Yeah.
This is something I'm really after, and I think is important. And that way I'm putting it out there, and I see if somebody will come and join me in it, versus I'm attacking them and trying to plead and beg them along. Okay. So that's one. The other one.
Or guilt them.
Fair. This is a big one too, is remember we're on the same team.
It's so easy to forget that sometimes.
Yeah, I've heard some clients, I think it was, if I remember where this came from first initially, was the idea of we're on the same side of the net, actually. We're not competing against each other on opposite sides of the net.
Right.
That
Right.
I have a teammate here
Yeah.
in this concept and in this aspect of my life.
Yeah. I shouldn't be trying to spike right in their face. We're on the same team.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's being
They're setting me, right? They're
learning,
setting me.
yeah, learning to be compassionate, learning to be supportive, learning to be helpful, playing my part, because again, that's the concept of a teammate.
Mm-hmm.
Each of you have different strengths. This is the higher desire, lower desire component.
Yeah.
Be a good part of the team and play your role well. And that's kind of the way we framed it. So when we look at this dilemma of our sex lives that is a team sport, then you want to recognize, okay, so how do we make better sense of this together? What do we need to do that's more collaborative rather than it's you against me?
And it's easy to say when you're in a collaborative relationship. All right. There's probably people out here listening that may not be there. So how, it may be difficult to really, maybe you're in a relationship that everything seems like it's combative,
it's
right?
Possible.
We're at
it's possible.
each other.
I will venture that if a relationship is still existing, they're collaborative in at least one area. And it might be incredibly superficial on that area, but it is a collaborative one. Everything else could be combative or collusive. And yes, the entirety of every relationship, of some relationships, could be combative or collusive, but it's
figure out how to change that.
but it's realizing if I'm looking at it as I'm on the same team with my spouse, I have a better chance of figuring out how do we collaborate to figure this out.
Yeah.
Because collaboration means I just do my part. And another way I do my part is I start softly when I bring up the conversation.
Okay.
Right. This is a Gottman idea of
Mm-hmm.
I have a soft start. That was one of his components of creating a better relationship is the art of the soft start.
Mm-hmm. And I think of gentleness, we're again going through fruit of the
Yep.
Spirit right now at church, and gentleness to me is that soft start, right? It's not the raised voice. It's how are you coming at it?
Yeah. And this also comes down to being tactful and tactical. I think those two words are different, but they are very, very appropriate in this concept, because it's don't talk to your partner about this kind of a subject right when they're getting ready to leave, or when you're cooking dinner and you got all kinds of stuff going on. I mean, this is the element of understanding my tendency, because sometimes I get in my own way for the subjects I really do care about, because my timing is just poor, because I don't bring into account what's going on with them. What's the best likelihood of this landing a little softer, or maybe moving it down the field just slightly, rather than, well, it's going in my head, so therefore it must be important, so I got to get it out. And so I just don't even recognize that my timing is bad. And so this is also where the acronym of, if you're going to deal with anything contentious, the acronym of HALT comes into play. It's really smart and helpful, which is, if I'm hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, it's not best time to deal with the tense and tough stuff, because I'm already a little not at the best in me. And so this is just recognizing the importance of, how do I do this softly and tactfully?
Yeah, that's a great, I like that acronym. That's a good idea. It really narrows down the times you have. And I think of some of our listeners that you got one working third shift and the other in the day, and they're already limited on time they see each other. And, well, when can we ever bring it up? Well, it's still smart. Even if you don't see each other all that much, it's still smart to not bring it up in those situations.
Well, and this is where
bring it up when you're angry or lonely.
This is where technology could be your friend here a little bit. Of, you send a quick message saying, "Hey, I'd love to spend a little bit of time discussing this, and I'd love to set up a time frame to do this. This works with us with our kids. This works with us on areas we know that we likely it's not going to land real well. We can soft start it, by wording it well, putting it in their court, and then circling back to it when there's a better time.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this is a common sense one in a lot of ways, but it's worth noting. Every chance you get, use I languages with it, whereas you're just speaking for you. Because if I come at you with, you know what, you never are interested in blah, 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 you're immediately going to go,
I'm on the defensive.
hold on a second here.
Yeah.
Right? Why are you attacking me?
Yeah.
You blah, 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 because we can easily slice and dice each other in marriage because we've got the ammo.
Yeah.
Right? Some of us are so surgically precise with the way we can slice. It's kind of a fascinating to watch.
Right.
But not fun to be on the receiving end.
Right.
But so it's just recognizing, hey, I feel like, or I'm interested, or I'm feeling lonely, or I feel like this is a real troublesome spot. And even if they don't see it the same way, if I keep it as an I at least put myself out there better to see what they do with it.
You're staying in your own circle.
And then I look at it as when I can frame my side of the team collaboration better, I then had to have a better idea of what I'm really up against to my teammate.
Mm-hmm.
I really then can see, okay, this is what's really going on. Because a lot of times we spend so much time fighting around other things that I'm not really facing the things I need to be facing.
Yeah.
Okay. Go slow is one. We're not going to solve this all in one fell swoop and one conversation.
Give it some time and realize that if we've got to change some sort of issue, repeated act or whatever, that habits don't change overnight.
Right. Well, but it's also the whole self-awareness process and then self-confrontation process takes some time.
Yeah.
Because if I don't see it, I can't change it. And so sometimes when I'm framing conversation, this has been our journey over the 31 years of you would bring something up and I hadn't even seen it.
Yeah.
And so then it's going to take me a little bit of time to wrestle with, okay, wait, is she true in this? Is it accurate or is it skewed? And she just is trying to pull one over on me, because that's the way my game goes in my head. Why would I give that to her? Blah, blah, rather than, wait, maybe there's truth there. Okay. And then it's going to take me a little bit of time to, okay, I see that. Okay. Now, do I really want to do that? Is that beneficial for me or am I just giving in and doing what she's telling, and that's the whole inner dialogue that happens that when you can look at it, you get a chance to grow yourself, but it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
And so when you bring these conversations, go slow and realize I'm just trying to tackle one thing at a time, one aspect, one thing that starts heading towards a goal that is ideal as I see it, because that goal may need to shift some when my partner starts collaborating better with me, because maybe the goal I have of more frequency isn't a good goal.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the quality that I was really longing for and I just didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Or maybe I keep getting in my own way and I didn't even know it.
Yeah.
And so the more you can do that and just be slow about it, the more things unfold.
I think that's an important concept because if you've had something in your brain for a while and you're bringing it out, it doesn't immediately, maybe you've been percolating on it for 6 months. It's not going to be an immediate impact or an immediate, oh yeah, I agree with you. Let's do this. It's not going to be there.
And this happens quite frequently with my brain as it relates to yours, because I'll bring up some subject, not even just on the subject of sex, but on that I've already thought out and connected all the dots.
Yeah.
And I've assumed you've already done all that legwork. And so when I bring it up, you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about, baby. And it makes me mad because it's like, how could you not? Because it makes sense in my world, but it has nothing in yours yet. And so I got to slow myself down to realize, I didn't articulate that really well. I had it in my head, but I haven't let you catch up to where I am.
Well, and you and I speak two different languages quite often.
What?
Right. We're both speaking English.
Right.
But one of them sounds like Pig Latin maybe.
Yes.
And it takes a while to figure it out. So we walk through things differently.
Absolutely. And then, so here's one of the don'ts: always and nevers. We use these so quickly and they're usually laced with emotion. That's where they come from, because I'm just putting together my argument. I'm making my case, if you will. And so when I recognize using an always, using a never are some of the most unhelpful approaches that we can have
Yeah.
when it comes to any topic we cover, because they're just not true.
Yeah.
And they just lead to defensiveness. So then a couple more before we wind this down.
Yeah.
One is the idea I love of just you have one mouth and two ears. So listen a whole lot more than you speak in this conversation.
That's just good general tip for all of life.
Yes, it is. So close your mouth and open your ears.
Yes.
When I can, and again, this goes back to the go slow. If I've got something I want to address with you, I am better and we are better served if I can narrow it down to one move at a time. Don't try to take care of everything in one fell swoop, which then means, hey, this is the issue that I'm really struggling with. And I listen to how it lands, listen to what it comes back from you, and I keep it on task as best as I can before we tackle something else.
Yeah.
Because it's so fascinating how we can so quickly become sophisticated middle schoolers here that I see you on board. Oh, so now let's take care of this too. And now I'm all excited because it's on the path I want it to be on. And you're like, I just said I would do that. I'm not going all the way down to there yet.
And now I might backtrack on the other because I'm ticked off.
Then my
Get me
argument
an
becomes
inch,
it's
now I'm
never
taking a mile.
enough.
Right,
And
it's
there's
never
the word
enough.
never again.
Right?
Right?
Yeah.
So it's recognizing I need to just slow down and close my mouth and listen more. The other one I think that's really important as we kind of end this thing is at some point, this is probably already a tacit understanding between you, but have an honest discussion about how to say no.
That's an amazing point. We could make a whole show about that. Because you want to have, I'm making an assumption this is where this is going, so correct me if I'm wrong. How to say no so I'm not being abrasive, so I'm not making you feel, well, I can't control your feelings.
Careful, good catch.
So I'm not
It's being
accusatory.
It's being
or
aware
all
of
these
how
things.
you're saying no. But I think it's also important for there to be a collaborative conversation about freedom, because I actually do have the freedom to say no at any point. We're going to unpack this a little bit more in the extended content too, from a slightly different angle in the way I'm thinking through it so far. There are times, this is played out between you and I, of a preemptive no, because you don't want to have to say no if it goes further than you want it to go. Right. And so it's like, I'd love to make out or whatever. And you're like, I don't even want to do that because I know you're going to just want to continue to go on and have sex with it. And I don't want to have to say no later. So it's easier to say no now.
Yeah.
And that limits us from being sexual. There's the tease for the extended content. But it also is important to realize am I being just reactive with this? Or how do we collaborate to realize, wait, when I say no, what I'm saying no about is right now, not the entirety, not our marriage, not your sexiness and your prowess and how you are attractive to me. Mm-hmm. It's right now. And so it's just having an understanding and a conversation about this, I think, is important, because sometimes I think people don't feel like they have the freedom to say no.
Oh, yeah, I would agree. And maybe it's guilt because I feel like I say no all the time or something along those lines. But yeah, I think you're right.
And so to the higher desires out there, if he or she does not have the freedom to say no, you won't hear yeses. It's just kind of obligatory sometimes then. It's not a enthusiastic yes.
It's an okay.
Because they don't have the freedom to say no. And so a lot of times I think there's an importance of how do we avoid or stop some things when it comes to our sex lives? What's a good way? I mean, this doesn't quite cleanly fit, I don't think, but I'm going to put it out there anyway. It's kind of like the safe words in the BDSM erotic fantasy world. They have safe words, that's my go-to. If it gets to a point that no, I am uncomfortable, it's traumatizing, it's too fraught with fear, that safe word ends everything.
Yeah.
And it's not held against you when you use it, because it's a collaborative understanding. Well, no can be the same thing, and actually probably should be. It's not held against you. It's a collaborative thing.
Yeah.
And so understanding, have that conversation about it. And then the last one is, I think we all benefit from just learning to be compassionate. Because again, we're on the same team. I want to experience this with my teammate. And so how do I learn to be compassionate with them? Because that's the challenge every day of life for me.
Yeah, I mean, we want to be good teammates on each side. And when we do that, we just get to higher levels. I mean, championship teams don't have one-sided teammates on it.
Here's the way to think about this as we end it. I need to learn to be compassionate. I'm going to speak to me here. I need to learn to be compassionate because when it comes to the things that I struggle with you and our sex lives, in our sex life, even as a podcast host and a PhD family therapist, I don't have high ground.
Right.
Over you. I still got baggage.
Right.
I still have struggles and fears and insecurities. I absolutely do.
Mm-hmm.
It may not seem like it at times, but I absolutely do. And so I need to be compassionate to realize we're on the same page. We're on the same team. We're on the same journey. And we all have things that can hold us down and weigh us down, and we've got to face them.
Yeah.
And if I can be compassionate with myself and with you, man, that changes.